Coming up on today's show, we will break down where the Dolphins sit at all the different positional depth charts after 2024 free agency with the NFL draft less than a month away. Now, if you want the Dolphins to crush the draft and make the playoffs next season, then show us. Like today's video right now, do not be the one who ends up jinxing it and making the Dolphins miss it. Let's go to quarterback. And the chance they draft somebody with fairly light premium round draft. Cowboys always take somebody later on in day 3, potentially. I look at this team and I say, okay, Tua's not going to go anywhere this year. Mike White is back under contract as the backup. Thompson can be quarterback 3. With the quarterback rule change now allowing for CB3 to be a practice squatter, you can give Thompson all the preseason reps you want. You're not going to play Tua that much. Unless there's somebody that falls on day 3 that they like, I would be surprised if Miami pursues the path of a quarterback in this year's class. Now, running back, I think, is also in pretty good shape. The Dolphins will probably be connected to, Dalvin Cook again somehow, some way. But I think this team's in pretty good shape. They have Raheem Mostert. They have A-Chain. We'll get to him more in depth in a minute. Jeff Wilson is back on a restructured contract. Chris Brooks is your battering ram power back. Savon Ahmed's back again as well. Alec Ingold's there. I don't think he even needs to really look in the direction of running back. Unless you want to wow, there's this guy we had a second round grade on is there in the 5th round. Let's take him and trade somebody that's not named Devon A-Chain. I think they're in really good shape, frankly, at the running back spot. You've got 2 very explosive, dynamic runners. Raheem Mostert, he had 21 touchdowns last year. You guys know that, right? Kind of flew under the radar in a way that maybe because, Tyreek Hill and Tua are there, et cetera, not as big a priority, whatever. 1,000 yards on the ground at almost 5 yards per carry. Despite missing some time with injury, A-Chain had 7.8 yards per carry. The carries will go up. The average will drop down. Look, if these guys are all healthy for an entire season, I think you can push 200 yards on the ground, or 1,000 yards each on the ground. And that's doable. Now, maybe you won't have a Denver game again where all the numbers get out of whack in one game and kind of boost your averages. But from a running back perspective, I feel really good about what you have in the backfield. And it's pretty cheap, by the way, too. Now, when it comes to all the positions on this Dolphins roster, which position group, core, are you most confident in? It's the pinned comment on this video. If that ad plays on YouTube, take advantage of it. Go vote at the pinned comment right now. Finally, a spot this team might look to draft a player early or sign somebody else still out there in free agency. It's wide receiver. You're locked and loaded at the number 1, number 2 spot. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle are both number 1 caliber wide receivers. Braxton Berrios can be a slot player for you. Eric Ezekama can maybe have a breakout season, but River Craycraft, Anthony Schwartz, Sexton, Sanders, it's frankly not a great group. I would expect between now and whenever it ends up arriving, draft, free agency, closer to camp, whatever, I bet Miami ends up adding another wide receiver here. Some notable names at receiver that are more than the vet minimum guys, right? Odell Beckham, of course, there's the off route. They've had conversations. That'll take some time, I suspect. Tyler Boyd could be a slot piece. Could go to Pittsburgh, by the way. Hunter Renfrow is a slot receiver. Maybe there's too much overlap there with Braxton Berrios. Michael Gallup, is an option for this team as an outside threat, but I don't think he was very good. Plus, last time he went Cowboys receiver, it was Cedric Wilson. That didn't turn out all that great either. This could be a priority for the Dolphins organization on draft day. Or maybe they wait on the free agency side to see how the draft ends up playing out. There are players at receiver they could consider on day 2 if they don't go, an A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas Jr. in round 1. Keon Coleman might slide down. They're going to be a very different type of receiver, a bigger body possession guy. Troy Franklin fits the speed. Roman Wilson is kind of a smaller receiver, but also pretty damn fast. Jermaine Burton, I think, is going to go on day 2 at Alabama. Xavier Legette. Those are 5 guys in a loaded wide receiver class. I think part of why you see so many teams linked to receivers is, they're linked to good players, right? I think that's something to monitor for Miami, but it might depend on how the board falls, as it should depend on, by the way. All right, tight end. Maybe this is a path the Dolphins consider of adding somebody on day 3 again. I think your top 2 guys are locked in. Jonnu Smith, Durham Smythe, of course, Miami added Jonnu Smith technically before free agency actually began from the Atlanta Falcons after kind of not faring all that great with the New England Patriots for Smith. He'll be your number 1 guy. I doubt you spend a premium pick on a tight end necessarily either. But day 3, you got some options. It's not a great tight end class. You could take a flyer. Keep kind of throwing some darts on day 3 at tight end or UDFAs like they did with Julian Hill. Now, today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. You're picking 2 to 6 player stat projections, more than or less than on those stat projections for NBA. You can do some March Madness ones. You could do NHL, MLB getting going here as well. Or you can do some NFL season-long prize picks. Plenty of Dolphins options available. This is one I had already locked in earlier for some of the bigger names, Mahomes more than passing yards. The point here I'm making with this one, take the more than. The season-long prize picks are already kind of factoring in potential injuries. Like the more than less thans are reduced because of the threat of injury. So these are all less numbers than what the guys had last season. So I think guys are going to stay healthy. Take the more than. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. The offensive line. I think you're set early rounds at least at tackle. I wouldn't expect a left tackle early unless that guy can also play left guard in the short term. Maybe on day 3 you look to double dip along the offensive line. I think interior offensive line, where you have Isaiah Wynn for now, Aaron Brewer at center, maybe Robert Jones. You'll have guys like Liam Eichenberg who can do some interior swing stuff for you. Lester Cotton fighting for a job. Jack Driscoll can play right tackle or right guard. I think early on you will look to address the interior of the offensive line, and probably day 3 look for a potential swing tackle option to compete for a job, although Isaiah Wynn can play left tackle for you in a pinch as well. So interior offensive line prospects to monitor the first 2 days. Christian Haynes is kind of a day 2 guy. Might be a first-round option. There's kind of some drop-off there. Maybe a Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State could make some sense there. I wonder if Jackson Powers-Johnson can play guard. I think he can. Maybe better center, but that'd be a round 1 option. Troy Fautanu would be a nice pick for Miami. You could plug him in at left guard to start and have the option to kick him back outside the left tackle down the road. That would be a really nice pick for Miami. Graham Barton can definitely play guard and has played center. I think his skill set fits better at guard than it does or at least on the inside at guard or center, and it does it tackle. Those areas stand out to me. Zach Frazier's coaches are going to love that guy, but I wonder if he can hold up at guard. I think he's only played center at West Virginia. It's kind of a slight red flag for me. But look at interior O-line early in the draft. That makes sense to me. Which side of the ball do you think is better right now for the Miami Dolphins? O for offense or D for defense? The interior defensive line. I mean, you got to get help here still. Frankly, let me rephrase. You need impact help. You don't need 2 day 3 draft picks on the defensive line. You got bodies: Zach Sealer, Neville Gallimore, Deshaun Hand, Benito Jones, Isaiah Mack, Brandon Peely, Davion Nixon, Jonathan Harris. You've got guys that can round out your core along the defensive line. You don't have another dude. You lost a stud in Christian Wilkins, and you lost a good player in Raekwon Davis. You've replaced those 2 guys with bodies. Some will be better bodies than others, but I need another Zach Sealer caliber player. So I absolutely believe interior D-line is a spot to manage or to target potentially in the early rounds. Byron Murphy, Johnny Newton. Maybe in the day 2 you find some value. Maybe you trade down at some point, add another day 2, early day 3 pick, and consider somebody sliding. I think you need to get one more upside piece along that defensive line. Someone like Brandon Dorlus in the second round would be, or even later on, would be really intriguing to me. That's the kid out of Oregon. The edge rushing room, it's fine if healthy, right? Jalen Phillips, the edge 1, Bradley Chubb, edge 2. Those guys are interchangeable from that perspective. Obviously, they traded for Chubb, recently from the Denver Broncos. Jalen Phillips has been there for a while. Both those guys have played very good football in the past. It's a matter of how healthy are they? How healthy are they at this stage coming off of the injuries? Torn Achilles in week 12 for Jalen Phillips. Torn ACL for Bradley Chubb in week 17. They did add Shaq Barrett. That gives them some stability depth behind the two guys, assuming they come back healthy in the not-too-distant future. Barrett had 4.5 sacks, 3 sacks, was down from 10 and 8 in previous seasons. You got him fairly cheaply. I think you've got talent at edge, but you might look for one more guy just to give you some extra depth if the Chubb-Phillips injuries are slower to recover from. I think you're in pretty good shape on the interior at linebacker. Your inside linebackers, you added 2 players, Jordyn Brooks and Anthony Walker, to go along with David Long. You'll let Channing Tindall and Duke Riley fight for a spot. From a pure depth perspective, you'll sign a UDFA or 2 or draft somebody as well. Jordyn Brooks is going to be a key part of this team now. He got locked up long term. I think he and David Long are a good pairing together. Maybe it's not the greatest, Niners level linebacker duo, but it should be good enough. Kendall Fuller, by the way, at corner, added. I'll also make a note here. It's a great point from my buddy Kyle Krabs. Listen to his podcast. With the way all these contracts were structured, because you didn't tag Chris Wilkins, and it sucks to lose him, make no mistake about it, as opposed to paying $21 million in the cap this year, you kind of signed almost everyone you signed for the same amount of salary cap space. Which is weird, but that is how it was structured. So that is noteworthy. You have a veteran option now at corner. I think the Jalen Ramsey-Kendall Fuller duo has potential. I still want to develop Cam Smith. I'd love to keep Nick Needham healthy for a season. You have Kader Kohu in there at the nickel spot. You have depth enough at corner. You draft somebody, but I think you'd be okay if you didn't. Safety, meanwhile, you probably want to spend a piece at some point, a draft pick at some point. Your starters are in there. Javon Holland, Jordan Poyer. Saran Neal could probably play some safety. I think he's kind of more of a special teams, depth nickel guy. Then it's Elijah Campbell, and that's kind of it. In fact, that not kind of is it. These 2 starters are fine. Do you want to use 3 safety looks? If not, if yes, okay, you got to spend someone kind of early or sign somebody else. And a still kind of strong safety market, by the way. Like, there's still some guys who haven't been found a spot yet. But from a numbers game, just at safety in particular, you need depth. I think especially at corner, probably in the UDFA path, most likely, you're going to sign some guys too. You're not going to play Kendall Fuller and Jalen Ramsey in the preseason. You need depth just even to get through the preseason, but you need some more help at safety for the games that matter. Finally, special teams, Jason Sanders, Jake Bailey, Blake Ferguson. I doubt things change from that perspective. So grade the Dolphins roster right now for me. Scale it from 1 to 100 in the comments section, the pinned comment of today's video.